For nearly 2 decades, South Korea's beloved little brother, superstar singer and actor Lee Seung-gi, lived a hidden nightmare manipulated by his agency Hook Entertainment and CEO Kwon Jin-young, who psychologically abused him into believing he was a financial failure deep in debt despite generating billions of won from chart-topping hits and acting roles. This elaborate gaslighting scheme finally unraveled in 2021 when an accidental text message revealed actual profits, sparking an investigation that uncovered over 9.6 billion won in embezzled funds, fake employees on the payroll, and the CEO's lavish lifestyle funded by Seung-gi's hard work while he survived on a meager allowance. Seung-gi fought back, terminating his contract and winning a landmark lawsuit in 2025, choosing to donate his settlement money to charity and inspiring the Lee Seung-gi Prevention Law to mandate financial transparency, proving that his integrity outshone the corrupt industry that tried to break him. To understand how a company could gaslight a superstar into poverty, we have to look at the dynamic between Lee Seung-gi and Kwon Jin-young, the CEO of Hook. When Seung-gi debuted in 2004 at just 17 years old, he wasn't just another trainee. He was a golden ticket. His debut song, Because You're My Woman, exploded instantly. It was a cultural phenomenon that turned him into a national sensation. But he was a teenager, naive and incredibly trusting, and Kwon Jin-young positioned herself not just as a CEO, but as a surrogate mother figure. In the cutthroat world of K-pop, that family rhetoric is common, but for Seung-gi, it was a leash. He trusted her implicitly. So when the agency started feeding him the narrative that his music wasn't making money, that the production costs were astronomical, and that he was operating at a loss, he didn't question it. He just worked harder, thinking he had to pay off a debt that didn't actually exist. Think about the sheer absurdity of this situation. For nearly 2 decades, Lee Seung-gi was releasing chart-topping hit after hit. We're talking about songs like Return, which held the #1 spot for weeks, and 27 albums with 137 songs in total. He acted in 13 dramas, hosted variety shows, and did dozens of commercials. Yet, every time he asked about his earnings, the narrative was the same. You're in the red. The agency used the industry standard of trainee debt against him, manipulating the accounting to make it seem like he would never dig his way out of the hole they fabricated. They told him his fans had no money, that they weren't buying his albums, and that Hook was basically doing him a charity by letting him release music. Can you imagine the psychological toll? Hearing that you are a financial failure while you are seeing your face on billboards all over Seoul? It breaks you. It makes you feel grateful just for being allowed to work. The illusion didn't shatter all at once. It cracked with a single accidental text message in January 2021. An administrative employee at Hook sent Seung-gi a message detailing the earnings from his 7th album. It showed a profit of about 33 million won. Now, for a top star, that might not sound like a massive amount, but for Seung-gi, it was a revelation. He was ecstatic. He ran to a senior colleague showing them the message, finally relieved that he had made something, that he wasn't a total failure. But his colleague looked at him with total confusion. They couldn't understand why a star of his caliber, who had been in the industry since 2004, was getting excited about a relatively small payout in 2021. That was the moment the blinders came off. His colleague asked the obvious question, "You haven't been paid before this." And just like that, 18 years of lies started to unravel. Once Seung-gi actually looked at his contract with clear eyes, the math didn't add up. The agreement stated he should receive 70% of the revenue from his music, but the agency had been claiming there was zero revenue to share. Let's look at the hard numbers, because they are infuriating. Take his 2015 album, for example. Hook spent roughly 172 million won on production. That album generated over 1 billion won in revenue. Even after subtracting costs, there was nearly 900 million won in pure profit. According to his contract, Seung-gi should have seen about 500 million won from that one release alone. He saw 0 won, not a penny. And we aren't just talking about a few years here. Between 2009 and 2021, over 9.6 billion won, that's roughly $7 million, vanished from his accounts. And that's not even counting the money from 2004 to 2008, because Hook couldn't find the financial documents for those years. You know, the years when he was arguably at his peak popularity with songs that defined a generation. When Seung-gi and his team started demanding transparency, the response from Hook wasn't an apology. It was arrogance. For a year, they tried to settle it quietly, giving him the runaround with humiliating excuses. But Seung-gi wasn't the naive teenager anymore. In November 2022, he lawyered up and sent a formal request for transparency. That's when the floodgates opened and the dirt started pouring out, thanks largely to investigative reports from Dispatch. The public found out that while Lee Seung-gi was counting pennies and eating white rice to save money, CEO Kwon Jin-young was living like royalty using his hard-earned cash. The disparity in their lifestyles is genuinely sickening. Dispatch released financial records showing Kwon Jin-young using a company credit card as her personal piggy bank. We're talking about luxury vacations, designer clothes, and fine dining. She was actually a VIP customer at Louis Vuitton in Seoul, featured on their website for spending millions of won. While she was dropping bags worth thousands of dollars, she had the nerve to scold Seung-gi's manager for the artist spending $20 on a meal. She demanded he pay for his own food before and after work. She even gave a company credit card to an employee at the Louis Vuitton store, a woman who didn't even work for Hook, and let her live off that card for years. It was a slush fund for the CEO's ego. Even worse, she listed her own family members as fake employees on the payroll. Her mother had a company credit card with a higher monthly limit than Lee Seung-gi did. Seung-gi, the man making the money, had a limit of about $500 a month. The CEO's mom had a limit of $3,000. How does that make any sense? The emotional abuse came to light through the testimony of the manager who worked with Seung-gi for 9 years. He painted a picture of a man trapped in a cycle of manipulation. Seung-gi is known for being polite, conflict-averse, and desperate for approval. Kwon Jin-young weaponized those traits. She would scream at him, verbally abuse him, and make him feel worthless. She used him as a party trick, dragging him to meetings to sing for her friends like a karaoke machine. She gave the team a pitiful weekly allowance for food, forcing Seung-gi to survive on a bowl of rice a day while performing for hours. She threw fits if he bought coffee. This wasn't just theft, it was psychological warfare designed to keep him compliant and grateful for the bare minimum. When the scandal broke, the public reaction was explosive. Fans were furious not just on Seung-gi's behalf, but because it confirmed every dark rumor about the K-pop industry. It showed how the family company's claim to be is often just a tool to exploit young talent. In December 2022, Lee Seung-gi finally terminated his exclusive contract with Hook. He sued Kwon Jin-young and other executives for embezzlement and fraud. Realizing the walls were closing in, Hook tried to buy their way out of trouble. They suddenly transferred about 5.4 billion won, roughly $4 million, to Seung-gi, and then filed a lawsuit claiming they no longer owed him anything. But Lee Seung-gi made a power move that resonated with everyone watching. He refused to settle. He rejected the idea that this hush money could wipe away 18 years of deceit. He announced that he would donate every single cent of that settlement money to charity, keeping only what he needed for legal fees. He gave millions to the Seoul National University Hospital and the Korean Red Cross. It was a massive screw you to the agency. He was telling them that he didn't want their dirty money and that he was fighting for principle, not a paycheck. The lawsuit continued because the investigators believed the actual amount stolen was much higher than the settlement offered, likely when you factor in the missing data from his early years and interests. The legal battle dragged on, but the victory was decisive. In April 2025, the Seoul Central District Court ruled in Lee Seung-gi's favor, ordering Hook to pay the outstanding balance plus interest for the delay. It was a vindication, but the scar remains. The case was so egregious, so blatantly corrupt, that it forced the South Korean government to act. They passed an amendment now known as the Lee Seung-gi Prevention Law. This law mandates that entertainment agencies must provide transparent accounting records to their artists at least once a year. It sounds like common sense, but before this, agencies could hide behind trade secrets and debt to steal from their own talent. Lee Seung-gi had to sacrifice his youth and his mental health to close that loophole for everyone else. It's a bittersweet ending, though. Today, Lee Seung-gi is married, has a daughter, and is continuing his career under a new agency, Big Planet Made. You'd think the story ends there with a happy ending, but the K-pop industry has a dark sense of humor. His new agency is currently facing its own financial crisis. Their CEO was recently sued for fraud, and it's been revealed that they haven't been paying their artists or covering promotion costs for the last year. It's almost comical if it wasn't so tragic. The man who fought so hard to get paid is now signed to a company that might not be able to pay him.